Just like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, you have dreams. And World Patent Marketing is here to help you turn your dreams into reality. Let's take a closer look at what World Patent Marketing can do for you.
It easily folds into itself and protects anybody from getting cut.
Donald Trump has a long history of making cabinet appointments that are, well, ironic. His Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is Ben Carson, a perfectly good neurosurgeon, I'm sure, but he has no background in architecture or urban planning. He also didn't experience public housing firsthand, rather he grew up in the affluent Indian Village neighborhood of Detroit. Trump's Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, has a background in business and political activism, but none as an educator. She's also a longtime advocate for school choice, school voucher programs, and charter schools. In other words, she's fought against public education. Trump's Secretary of Energy once advocated abolishing the Energy Department. That was apparently the third agency that he forgot about in his famous oops moment.
It's 3 agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see. I would do away with the education, I can't. The third one I can't, sorry. Oops.
It's also ironic he joined Trump's cabinet because he once said this.
Donald Trump's candidacy is a cancer on conservatism, and it must be clearly diagnosed, excised, and discarded.
Plus there was this.
I see Rick Perry the other day. And he's so, he's doing very poorly in the polls. He put glasses on so people will think he's smart.
Now, Matt Whitaker is no exception to these ironic appointments. He may look like Special Agent Hank Schrader, but as I will argue in this video, he's no fan of law and order. But I believe that is the point of his appointment to this seat of incredible power. Make no mistake about it, Trump put him in there not to keep the department running, but rather to limit its functioning. This appointment has nothing to do with Whitaker's experience with law enforcement agencies and everything to do with the Mueller probe. In fact, to understand Trump's motivation in forcing Jeff Sessions to resign, you need merely look at his replacement. So who is Matt Whitaker?
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
Either the thing is true or it isn't. If it is true, you should believe it, and if it isn't, you shouldn't.
I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life.
They want to wipe out the fact that 5 million children in this country go to bed hungry.
Our nation is waging a war on a radical network of terrorists, not on a religion.
Nevertheless, she persisted.
And then we fell in love. Okay? No, really.
It's clear the president's trying to put enough pressure on Jeff Sessions so that Jeff does what the president, I believe, would think would just be honorable, and that is resign. And I don't think Jeff Sessions, who is currently in his dream job as Attorney General, is going to do that.
If one thing's for sure, Trump knows Matt Whitaker.
I never talk about that, but I can tell you Matt Whitaker's a great guy. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
Or maybe he doesn't.
Well, Matt Whitaker, I don't know Matt Whitaker.
Well, he clarified more recently in a tweet where he again states that he knows Whitaker and doesn't know Whitaker. I did not know Mr. Whitaker. I did not know Mr. Whitaker except primarily as he traveled with AG Sessions. No social contact. Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase. He knows who Matt Whitaker is. Trump weirdly contradicting himself on this repeatedly is funny, but it's a distraction because there are much bigger issues at stake here. For instance, Whitaker's appointment might not even have been legal. Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Richard Blumenthal have pointed out that Trump ignored the normal line of succession. Now, you'd probably expect Democrats to challenge just about anything Trump does, but this isn't just partisan posturing. John Yoo, a professor at the University of California, who was also a lawyer in the Justice Department under George W. Bush, wrote a piece for The Atlantic called "Whitaker's Appointment is Unconstitutional. Trump's acting attorney general can't legally hold the office, and that's a problem for everyone." If that wasn't clear enough, in the article he wrote, Whitaker's appointment violates the appointment clause's clear text because he serves as attorney general, even if in an acting capacity, but never underwent Senate advice and consent. The state of Maryland has also asked a federal judge to declare the appointment unlawful, and here's someone who I really didn't expect to agree.
I think that it was an unlawful appointment. Now, the Congress was very careful when it wrote these laws. It didn't want somebody running the 90,000 employees in the Justice Department and the thousands of criminal investigations and prosecutions that go on every day who had not been vetted by the Senate.
The fact that this appointment was probably not lawful is just one of many ways in which the Trump administration is eroding the traditions of the American system. But even more problematic is the fact that the interim AG doesn't actually seem to understand or respect basic American civics. Now, I'm not expecting Whitaker to be a constitutional law professor, but as the head of the federal government's law enforcement, I would expect him to know a little bit about law and government. Like, he should know there are 3 equal branches of the US government, and they operate through a system of checks and balances. This is not complicated stuff. I mean, imagine you were a teacher and God help you, you were teaching 8th grade civics. What grade would you assign to a student who thought that the 3 branches of government were ranked? No points, Matthew. You fail the quiz. That's right. Matthew Whitaker actually believed that the judiciary branch was supposed to be inferior. And I know what you're thinking. He was one really dumb 8th grader. Well, he didn't actually answer that on a test in the 8th grade. He said it as an adult man in public. And this wasn't his only public display of ignorance about law and government. We know he doesn't understand the first 3 articles of the Constitution, but what about the relationship between the federal government and the states? During his failed 2014 run for the Republican Senate nomination in Iowa, Whitaker said, "Now we need to remember that the states set up the federal government and not vice versa. And so the question is, do we have the political courage in the state of Iowa or some other state to nullify Obamacare and pay the consequences for that? Do I believe in nullification? I think our founding fathers believed in nullification. There's no doubt about that." There kind of is doubt about that. As University of Texas law professor Stephen Vladeck put it, nullification as a serious mainstream legal argument didn't survive the Civil War. It's irreconcilable not only with the structure of the Constitution, but with its text, especially the text of the Supremacy Clause of Article 6, which not only makes the federal law supreme, but expressly binds state courts to apply it. Now, I don't know why Whitaker would say such overwhelmingly stupid things. Maybe he's that stupid, which would be terrifying, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's not really that stupid. His attacks on the Constitution and the American system maybe are just an expression of deep-seated disdain that he has for courts, law, and justice. Probably not a good quality to have as acting head of the Department of Justice, but there is good reason to think that's the case. Because Matt Whitaker has an ugly history of shady, illegal business practices. In October of 2014, Matt Whitaker joined the advisory board of a company called World Patent Marketing.
Would you like to get your idea legally protected by a patent attorney and evaluated by a leading university? Would you like to receive royalties from a major corporation? We are an industry success because of our commitment to each and every inventor.
In a press release from the company, he is quoted as stating, "I have always admired World Patent Marketing and its innovative products and dynamic leadership team. It's an honor to join the World Patent Marketing Board." That same press release would note his history as a U.S. attorney and would gush about his invaluable insight and experience regarding the enforcement of federal crimes, including mail and wire fraud, public corruption, corporate fraud, and other scams. And it would seem he put that experience to work at World Patent Marketing. Far from being a mere figurehead, Whitaker was an active part of the company's operations, even touting inventions by the company's clients in online videos. As it turns out, World Patent Marketing was a scam, one that the FTC fought to shut down for over a year, beginning in March of 2017. The FTC's court filings explain the scam this way. For the last 3 years, defendants, that's World Patent Marketing, have operated an invention promotion scam that has bilked thousands of consumers out of millions of dollars. Defendants promise consumer inventors a patent and a lucrative licensing or manufacturing agreement that will allow consumers to successfully monetize their inventions. Defendants craft their marketing materials to create the impression that they have successfully helped other inventors, and thus that they are reliable and reputable. In truth and in fact, defendants fail to fulfill almost every promise they make to consumers. After defendants collect thousands of dollars from consumers and string them along for months or years, defendants fail to provide third-party licensing or manufacturing agreements, and their customers do not make money as a result of defendants' purported research, patenting, and invention promotion services. Additionally, the FTC alleged, in numerous instances, defendants have used tactics including threats, intimidation, and non-disparagement clauses to discourage purchasers from speaking or publishing truthful or non-defamatory negative comments or reviews about the defendants and their services. One of the people who actually did this is Matt Whitaker.
Most people have great ideas, but not everyone takes action.
He acted as an enforcer for the company, writing at least one threatening email in response to a complaint in which he cited his former role as a U.S. attorney. In early 2015, an anonymous comment on a website called ripoffreport.com claimed that the company was a scam. The website's owner claims that he then received a phone call from Matt Whitaker. He threatened me using a lot of foul language. He threatened to ruin my business if I didn't remove the posts. He said he would have the government shut me down under some homeland security law. In May of 2018, a Florida federal court finally ordered the company to cease operations and pay a judgment of nearly $26 million. Ironically, around the same time Matthew Whitaker began his work at World Patent Marketing, he was also working as the executive director of a group called the Foundation of Accountability and Civic Trust, a non-profit organization. But this was no charity. Funded almost entirely by dark money, its purpose was to attack leaders in the Democratic Party. The organization filed complaints and called for investigations of Hillary Clinton, Claire McCaskill, Mark Warner, Andrew Gillum, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren. As CNN reported, it's not clear whether any of the group's filings ever resulted in government action. Still, Whitaker was paid handsomely for his work as a hatchet man. As one of just 2 people on the payroll, he earned $717,000 between 2014 and 2016 from this organization. Fast forward to September of 2017, he began serving as the chief of staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and Sessions would soon be on the outs with Donald Trump. Prior to the appointment of Robert Mueller to head up the Russia investigation, Trump and Sessions were aligned on just about everything.
I told Donald Trump, this isn't a campaign, this is a movement. Look at what's happening.
Sessions was one of Trump's earliest supporters, their policy positions virtually identical. Trump's only complaint about Sessions was his recusal from the Mueller probe. Sessions basically made the mistake of doing one ethical thing, and Trump never forgave him.
Like this morning's tweet about the real thorn in his craw, Russian collusion. The president writing, quote, "If we had a real attorney general, this witch hunt would never have been started, looking at the wrong people."
And while their relationship was breaking down, Matthew Whitaker began auditioning to become his replacement on cable news.
There's no criminal obstruction of justice charge to be had here.
If Bob Mueller does go beyond the 2016 election and get into Trump organization finances, I think that would be crossing a red line.
He even penned an article for CNN in August of 2017 called "Mueller's Investigation of Trump is Going Too Far." Now, just because Whitaker is against the Mueller probe doesn't mean he'll necessarily end it. One Trump surrogate even suggested that no one believes that he's going to seriously constrain the investigation.
Here's the thing in terms of the Mueller probe. Nobody believes, I don't think, that Whitaker is going to come in and seriously constrain his investigation.
You really don't?
Why?
You don't think he's going to end?
Well, actually, there's good reason to believe he will. As acting AG, Whitaker really only has 3 options as to what to do about the Mueller probe. And here they are in ascending order of likelihood. Number 1, he could keep it going by, for example, recusing himself. House Democrats are already calling on him to recuse himself, but it's really unlikely he's going to do this because he's smart enough to know that that's exactly why his former boss got the boot. Whitaker could also do the exact opposite and order an end to the Mueller probe. I wouldn't count this out as a possibility completely, but it would be a clumsy political maneuver. It would make it quite clear that he's acting only in the personal interests of Donald Trump rather than the interests of justice and the American people overall. It would draw a huge media backlash and could potentially light a powder keg that could eventually lead to the end of Trump's political career. If for some reason he felt he needed to urgently end the probe, this might happen. But far more likely, he'll go with option 3, a far more subtle plan that he actually spelled out on cable news.
So I could see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
To dwindle his resources.
Well, that's the option he's going to go with. Siege tactics. This is a classic Republican ploy, one they attempted to use against Planned Parenthood and against Obamacare. If you can't destroy something directly, defund it. As acting head of the DOJ, Whitaker could limit the special counsel's resources so severely that he can't get anything done. That's almost certainly what he's going to do, and it's almost certainly what he was put there to do.
And as acting Attorney General, and really try to get Rod to maybe even cut the budget of Bob Mueller and do something a little more stagecrafty.
But beyond this one seedy thing that Matt Whitaker was put into office to do, it's also critical that we consider the very important role that the Attorney General is supposed to serve in America. Consider what it means to be the chief lawyer for the United States government. Consider that it involves running the federal prison system and overseeing federal law enforcement. Consider that the Attorney General is the person who decides whether or not to seek the death penalty in federal cases. Consider that the Attorney General oversees financial crimes. Then consider this question.
Let's take a closer look at what World Patent Marketing can do for you.
It's a unique design that's going to help lots of people that have mobility issues get in and use their hot tub in a safe manner. But also it's going to be easily assessed in places you wouldn't find razor blades, like kitchens and households.